If you visit Dumas Beach on a typical afternoon, you'll find a perfectly normal coastal escape. You will see crowds walking the shoreline, vendors selling snacks, and families eating near the surf. But look closely at the ground, and the illusion cracks. The sand here isn't gold or white, it is pitch black. For centuries, this exact stretch of coastline served as a massive, open-air cremation ground. Thousands of bodies were stacked on traditional wooden pyres and burned. This diagram shows the literal geological reality of the beach today. The dark coloration isn't volcanic rock. The top strata of this ground is structurally mixed with centuries of human ash, charred wood, and unburied bone fragments. Every sandcastle built and every towel laid down by those daytime crowds rests directly on an unpurged graveyard. The vibrant carnival atmosphere completely masks the morbid reality of the soil. A group of 5 college friends arrived at Dumas looking for a thrill.
They knew the local stories and were well aware of the absolute rule enforced by the surrounding villages. You do not stay past sunset. While walking the shore, a local scavenger offered them a blunt warning. He told them the dead were resting right beneath their feet, and they would remain quiet only as long as the sun was up. The group fractured. 3 of the friends felt a deep unease and decided to stay behind near the safety of the main crowd. But Mayor and Kushal pushed further down the coastline into the isolated, ruined sections. At exactly 6 o'clock, the sun slipped below the horizon, and the safety net of the living vanished. By standing in the ruins as night fell, the 2 boys crossed a hard boundary. They traded the protection of a tourist destination for the active hours of a burial ground. Nightfall on the coast hit fast.
The sky drained of color, dropping the temperature instantly, and Mayor and Kushal realized with a jolt of panic they had entirely lost track of time. They turned back to find the exit, but the landscape warped around them. They walked for what felt like miles, yet the shoreline never changed. Every direction looked exactly the same. They reached for their phones to call their friends, but their cellular service had flatlined. Worse, their fully charged batteries had inexplicably drained to 0 in a matter of minutes. The modern world was gone. They were plunged into absolute sensory deprivation, left with nothing but the deafening roar of unseen ocean waves crashing in pitch darkness. The environment systematically dismantled their defenses, stripping away every modern lifeline until they were entirely vulnerable. The attack started with their hearing. Soft, almost melodic voices began drifting out of the darkness, calling to them through the heavy wind. A voice cut through the wind, speaking Mayor's name and familiar Gujarati. It was his grandmother, a woman who had vanished without a trace 8 years prior. Before they could process the voice, the air grew thick. The unmistakable, sharp stench of burning human funeral wood suddenly filled their lungs. A pack of feral dogs surrounded them, howling and lunging from the shadows. Kushal violently swung his heavy leather belt, and Mayor threw handfuls of wet sand. But the moment the dirt made contact, the dogs scattered into the wind. From the distance, an aggressive chant erupted, Ram Nam Satya Hai. A traditional funeral procession materialized out of the blackness. Silhouettes carrying violently burning torches charged directly at the boys. Terrified, they turned and sprinted blindly into the freezing ocean water to escape. But as they waded into the surf, a massive, luminescent shape slowly breached the surface of the dark waves, towering over them. The simultaneous assault on every sense, the voices, the stench, and the charging phantoms finally overwhelmed them. Their minds buckled under the weight of the nightmare, and both boys collapsed in the freezing water. Hours later, dawn broke over the coast. The terrifying, hostile environment reverted to a placid, sunlit beach as a search party of local police and their frantic friends combed the shoreline. They found Mayor and Kushal lying motionless at the water's edge. They were soaking wet, unresponsive, and their bodies were heavily caked in the thick, black, ash-filled sand of the crematorium. They were immediately pulled from the beach and treated by a local doctor. Both boys had developed severe, spiking fevers, their bodies physically rejecting the trauma of the night. The physical fevers eventually broke, but the psychological damage remained. Long after returning home, Mayur continued to wake up screaming in the middle of the night, suffocating on the phantom smell of burning funeral wood. The events at Dumas Beach prove that history does not automatically stay buried just because we build a tourist attraction over it. Ignoring local warnings is an act of arrogance, and on this stretch of sand, it is a direct invitation